I have a question for you. Why must we turn every major event happening in the world into an end time Bible prophecy? Why is it the moment there's a possibility of a really large war, this must be it? The prophecies are being fulfilled. This is the end of the age. This is it. Jesus is coming at any moment now. It's all falling into place. Haven't we learned our lesson yet? When I came to faith in 71 and Hal Lindsey's book, The Late Great Planet Earth, was the best-selling Christian book, and everyone had worked out, the prophecies have fallen into place, and look at this, and Jerusalem back in Jewish hands. It was a momentous time. The handwriting's all on the wall, and Jesus coming back at any minute. Come on, friends. I had shoulder-length hair, dark brown, wavy shoulder-length hair back then, not this gray hair and gray mustache and gray eyebrows and receding hairline. Nancy and I hadn't even met yet. We're both 16 years old at that point. We hadn't even met, 16, 17 years old. Now we're about to celebrate 45 years of marriage. Our oldest granddaughter is 21 years old in her junior year of college. We weren't expecting that because all the prophecies it's all at the door. It's all laid out. Friends, why do we have to do this? Why do we have to find COVID in the Bible? Someone recently said, hey, if that's not a plague, a biblical plague, I don't know what a plague is. Well, think of this. It is serious. A couple million people, maybe more, have lost their lives worldwide if we just go with the stats that are being reported. But how many people died of the Spanish flu? So you're talking, 100 years ago. Some have called it the mother of all plagues. How many people died worldwide of the Spanish flu? And may I point out, Jesus didn't come back then. And he hasn't come in the 100+ years since then. Still hasn't happened. And all those people that were alive back then, they're basically all dead, with the exception of a few that are 100+ years old. About 500 million people contracted the flu. And estimates are between 20 and 50 million died. And remember, the world population then was much, much, much smaller than it is today. In fact, Kai, Chris, see if you can find for me and post what the world population was around 1920. This was something that was massively bigger, massively deadlier than COVID. And that was not the end of the world. That was not a plague from the book of Revelation, was it? No. Okay, let's go back, looking here about the Black Death, known as the pestilence, the great mortality, or the plague. So it was in Afro-Eurasia from 1346 to 1353. What was the population of that part of the world back then? It's the most fatal pandemic recorded in human history, causing the death of 75 to 200 million people in Eurasia. So here, okay, I'm just looking at this. The plague might have reduced the world population from around 475 million to 350 to 375 million. So in terms of world population, you're reducing it by over 20% of the world population. There were parts of Europe where 2/3 of the population died of the plague. And that was not the end of the world. That was not a final plague from the book of Revelation. And whatever was happening there was no mark of the beast, etc. So yes, every death by COVID is a tragedy. But look, all right, so let's just up it to 2 billion people. As many as 50 million out of 2 billion died of the Spanish flu. I mean, that is so exponentially higher than what we've seen with COVID, especially as it seems to be dissipating now. What's my point? It wasn't the end of the world then. And just because COVID happened and now Russia invading Ukraine, come on. World War II was massively deadlier than the Russian invasion of Ukraine right now. Yes, things could escalate, things get worse, but we're always expecting this is it. It's all going to fall apart. Why? Where does the Bible teach us to think in that way? In fact, it doesn't. Jesus said, you'll hear of all these things, but that's not the end yet. Maybe this is yet another birth pang. Maybe World War II was a birth pang. Maybe World War I was a birth pang. What was the deadliest war in American history in terms of American casualties? By far, the Civil War. And that wasn't the end of the world. So, friends, we can live with anticipation of the Lord's return. We can live with excitement about the Lord's return. We can look forward to his return and eagerly desire it. But for me, I live with a sense of urgency because I only have one life to live. For me, I live with a sense of urgency because I'm about to turn 67. And even with wonderful blessings of health on my life, I don't expect to be preaching the gospel at 115 years old. So there is a time limit. There is a ticking of the clock. So friends, let's not turn every headline into some end time biblical prophecy. And let's live with realism. Let's live with faith. Let's live with expectation. Let's live with urgency, because people are dying every day without the Lord, because we have only one life with which to live our lives. So let's make that the priority, friends. Let's make the priority how we can please God, how we can honor the Lord while we have breath, as opposed to thinking, Jesus is coming any minute. I'm going to be out here any second. How are you going to plan a family? How are you going to plan a career? How are you going to plan out an educational process? How are you going to birth a long-time mission strategy? How are you going to do anything with a long-term vision when you're thinking like that? In the meantime, the world is going on, making its plans, doing what it does, thinking in a multi-generational way, whereas we're thinking, hey, we're out of here any second. It is not a biblical way of thinking. It is not a productive way of thinking. When things get to a certain point, when the whole world is shaking, and things are so bad that human beings are literally dropping dead out of fear of what could be coming, and we see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, and we see the man of sin, the Antichrist, clearly a world leader, plunging the world into destruction and persecuting believers. When a whole bunch of things are in place that are not in place now, then Jesus says, look up, your redemption draws near. And that could unfold quickly. Things could suddenly happen in the next 3, 5, 10 years, 1 year, where suddenly the world's turned upside down and things are going on we've never imagined. But we're not there yet. We're not there yet. So friends, yes, there's a crisis in Russia, Ukraine, that if not handled rightly could explode and hundreds of millions could die in nuclear wars. That's possible. But we're not there right now. Let's pray for wisdom. Let's pray for divine intervention. Let's pray for God's kingdom to come, his purposes to be done in the midst of this, wisdom for our leaders to do the right things. Let's pray for peace in the midst of conflict, and for people on all sides of the conflict to look to the Lord for salvation, mercy, and deliverance. And look, even if it was a nuclear war, it still doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It wasn't the end of the world when we dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. As many people's lives were taken, and as much as the war was shortened, that wasn't the end of the world. So let me say this with scriptural authority. When it gets really, really close, you won't need anyone to tell you anymore. When you're in the car and it's drenching rain, you don't need anyone to tell you it's raining. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, click on one of the boxes on the screen, check out another one of our videos, and be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. You know, we discovered that about 60% of you that are watching our videos aren't subscribers. So subscribe today. Doesn't cost you a dime. And if you want to support our work, Line of Fire, and all the things that we do, follow one of the links on the screen below.